to the kid, then what do we do instead? Go brain dead. Now, why do I go brain dead when kids start to argue? Well, see, if I don't, I start to think. And if I start to think, what happens? Words start coming out of my mouth. And what's my worst enemy at that time? The words that come out of my mouth. Okay. So when she says, but it's not fair, I like to keep it short and soft. I know. Now, what can a kid do with those two words? I know. Could get mad. Well, that's stupid. So the answer is, I know. Because I don't want to think at a time like this or I'm going to get in trouble, right? But I really needed that money. What's the answer? I know. But I promised all my friends I was going to, I know. And now you're making a liar out of me. I know. Well, I suppose you're just going to ask me to do more chores, and I wasn't born into this family to be a slave. I know. And she said, but I'm begging you. And what's the answer, everybody? I know. Now, I hear your voices starting to come up. Uh-oh. When you start to recognize the power in this, you start to feel a little smug, and then the sarcasm comes out. Okay. So how are we going to say it again? I know. And if you want to soften it, a lot of times you can say, I know, it's hard. I know, it's hard, right? Well, she's figuring out this is not working. I'm going to have to rip my parents' heart right out of their body. So now she comes up with something like, well, I didn't ask to be born into this crappy family in the first place. What's the answer? I know. And finally she says something like, well, this sucks. What's the answer? I know. Or would it be better to say, don't you use that word? Which one's going to work best, huh? Okay. Now, how long can you keep saying I know, everybody? Forever, yeah. Now, is she going to say to herself, wait a minute, manipulation just does not work with this adult. I'm going to have to clean up my act? Or is she going to say, wait a minute, manipulation to level 1 did not work. I'm forced to go to level 2. What does level 2 sound like? You don't love me if you love me. Would you like one for that? Yes or no? Yes. Okay. Well, I know it's probably a little too sarcastic, isn't it? I'm reminded of the woman who came to me in the Rocky Mountain Conference. Oh, 3 years ago. She's so excited. She ran up. She said, Jim, you want to see my new tattoo? Well, I don't know. Where is it? She said, well, it's right here on my finger. And on the first joint of her first finger, she had this little smiley face you see on the Walmart ads. I said, what's that there for? And she said, when my kid says I don't love him, I just whip that out and I look at it, and it reminds me to grin. Now, why do you grin when your kids are giving you a hard time, huh? Because it terrorizes them, that's why. Say, oh no, the adult's grinning. This may not be the adult's problem. If it's not the adult's problem, it's bound to become my problem. Yeah. She had 2 more words. One word on this joint, the word nice. One word on this joint, the word try. And she said, my kid says, you don't love me? I just whip that out and I look at it and I say, let's see, big grin, everybody, let's do it. Let's see. Nice try. Now, can you use that in other situations? Let me give you a situation in your classroom. Let's see how it goes, okay? Here, I'm the kid. Well, shouldn't have to memorize all these facts. They're irrelevant because I'm gifted. What's the answer? Nice try. How about that? How can I do the assignment? I forgot my book at home. Nice try. How about this? But nobody will loan me a pencil. Nice try. Now you're a parent. Your kid is coming home from school. You say, where's your homework? We don't have homework anymore. It's a new policy. What's the answer? Let's hear it. Nice try. Okay. Do you ever, though, have fantasies about what you'd really like to say to a kid who pulls that stuff about you not loving them? Aren't you glad they're just fantasies? But here's one you can actually experiment with. When a kid says something like that and you have to say, oh, that was a nice try, then I want to stop and say, oh, by the way, I used to do that very same thing to my parents when I was your age. Then you add this, but it worked for me. kid going to give it up at level 2 or go to level 3, everybody? You're mean, I hate you. The answer is, I know, nice try, either one. Now, have you ever known a kid to go to level 4? I don't have to put up with this. I'm going to go live with Dad. I'm going to go live with my friends. I've heard this one. I'd rather live on the street than in this police state. Would you like one for that? Love it? How about a loving one? How about, I'll love you wherever you live. Would you like to take a little page out of the little secret that TV broadcasters know and radio personalities know and stand-up comics, other people who use words for a living, therapists and so on? They know this. If you want the punchline to hit hard and sink in, what has to happen? There has to be a pause before the punchline and then speed up that punchline a little bit. Let's try it together. Ready? I'll love you wherever you live. Very nicely done. Do it one more time, please. I'll love you wherever you live. The longer the pause, the more dramatic it becomes, right? Now let me ask you a question. Do people who use these skills have a calmer life, yes or no? Do they have more energy left over at the end of the day? Yeah. How much of our energy is worn down with the arguing and all of that with the kids? And tell me, how much of our frustration is burned up seeing all that not work? Or is that even worse? Yeah. Okey-doke.
Do your kids ever make you late for work? Coming up, Jim Fay talks about rule number 2 of Love and Logic and the strategic training plan. But right now, please support this public television.
Rule number 2. When kids cause a problem, hand it back. Hand it back in a loving way. Now, we said the gist of today was to find out how to hand their problems back so that they don't see us as the source of the problem. What if I say to the kid, that's not my problem, that's your problem? That's not going to work, is it? What if I say, you're going to have to do something about that? We're not putting up with that, see? Now that becomes me as the source of the problem. So we're going to be talking today as we go along about how can we hand it back. But let's just remember that it's easy to identify the people who have no idea how to work with kids at all. The really pathetic souls of the world. Because we hear them and they talk like this. Now what am I supposed to do? Now look what I have to do. Now I have to buy him another coat. Now I have to drive him to school because he acts up on the bus. Now I have to, now I have to, now I have to. See, Love and Logic teachers, Love and Logic parents are saying, ooh, what do you think you're going to do? How are you going to work that out, right? Let's have a little story. How many have never, ever had trouble getting your kids ready to go in the morning so that you can be on time? Yeah, that's a pretty universal problem, isn't it? A woman came to me in Evergreen, Colorado. She said, if my kid makes me late for work one more time, I lose my job. And she said, not my fault. I try everything. Nothing will work on this kid. I said, well, why are you talking to me if nothing will work? Well, I thought maybe you had an eye. Well, I think I got something for you. I won't guarantee it'll work, but I'll guarantee it'll be fun. Okay? But you need a couple of skills first. What is the first skill we ever teach parents, everybody? Neutralize arguing, right? That's the first thing we teach. So she had to learn how to go brain dead, neutralize arguing. Second thing I taught her was, don't tell your kid what to do. Tell him what you're going to do. And then we talked about something very special in Love and Logic. It's called a strategic training session. When we don't have control, when we don't really know what to do, we sit back and we develop a strategic training plan. And then once we've got the plan in effect, we don't use it. Oh yeah, don't use it, because you got to do something first. Got to go around to people and say things like to your friends and say, here's my plan. If I did this, what might go wrong? Let's hear it. What might go wrong? Okay. Now your friends will always be happy to tell you what's wrong with your thinking. Well, what if he does this? Yeah, but what if he says that? What if he throws a fit? What if, you know? And then you know each one of those is a hole that has to be plugged. And we're going to plug that hole before we do anything. So she got her plan together. She went home. She said to little Brian, Brian, I'm so excited. Starting tomorrow, I'm going to be to work on time every single day. You know why? My car will be leaving at 7:30. Now, there's 2 ways to go. What are those 2 ways, everybody? Clothes on your body, clothes in a bag. Okay. She said, I can't wait to see what you decide. Then she goes about plugging all the holes. First hole to plug, call up the nosy neighbor next door who's always peeking out through her curtains and spying on her, criticizing her, calling social services. Calls her up and says, tomorrow morning at precisely 7:30 a.m., we're going to have a Love and Logic moment at our house. Here's what you do that's going to help you a lot. You tell him, first of all, here's how I'm making sure he's safe. Okay? Because always people will go for that. That's got to be the first consideration anyway. Here's how I make sure he's safe. Here's why I'm doing it. Here's what. And she said, oh, by the way, if you peek out through your kitchen curtains, you can actually watch this happen. Next thing she did, she called up social services and said, we're having a Love and Logic training session tomorrow morning. What do we say? First of all, this is how I'm making sure he's safe. Here's what I'm doing, and so on. Didn't want it to be a surprise, okay? Somebody called you, you know about it. Next call went to the daycare center. And she said, Brian may appear at your door tomorrow with his clothes in a bag. Do not let him into the daycare center until he's dressed. And whatever you do, do not tell him to get dressed. Let's do a little sidebar here. You know, I learned that you can tell stories and then stop in the middle and go off on tangents if you do it right. I learned it during the O.J. trial. Judge Ito taught me, if you just call it a sidebar, you can go off on anything, right? There are 2 kinds of kids in the world, basically. And one is the kid who cannot wait to find out what you want so he can give it to you, because he is hardwired from birth to believe that the world is a win-win place. If I do what you want me to do, you'll do what vice versa. Everybody wins. Unfortunately, that is not the kid who motivated you to come to this workshop, right? Type B kid. This is the kid who cannot wait to hear what you want so he can make sure you never get it. And you tell me, is that kid ready to die rather than give it to you? Yes or no? Okay. And that's the kind of kid she has. She said, this is a kid, if you said to him, get dressed, and you order him around, he would freeze to death out there as opposed to getting himself dressed just to spite you. So do not say that. Get an enforceable statement ready. The next call went to Mabel, the babysitter from hell. Now, I'm a firm believer in all kids having 2 babysitters. And one babysitter is the babysitter from heaven. Kids love her. They play games. They have a wonderful time. They look forward to her. The other is Mabel. Mabel is trained to do 2 things. One, make sure that the kid is safe. And number 2, make sure that kid thinks the parents are really special when they get home, right? That babysitter is trained to talk like this. My God, kid, no wonder somebody has to be paid to be around you. Get in your room. Don't like kids anyway. You can come out when your mother comes home. Now, she's not mean, but she's just not fun to be around, right? And who pays for that babysitter? The kid does. Yeah, okay. Now, when a kid is 11 years of age, I think they're too old for a babysitter, okay? But I want to make sure that I say this. I do not leave the best, most responsible kids at home alone anymore. Used to be able to do that. Because I have seen some horrible situations with really responsible, nice kids who could have handled themselves fine. And they were there alone. And the kids in the neighborhood figured out there was no adult in that house. They stormed the house, had parties. The house is all trashed out. The kids lived with this guilt forever. And it's not something you can do. So now, starting at 11 years of age, we don't have babysitters anymore. We have house guards. And the kid says, I don't need her around. Yeah, but the house needs it, okay? They're here to protect the house. Now, she charges on a sliding scale. She charges $5 an hour if you're here to help her, and if you leave the house, then the price goes up to $10 an hour because she has to do it on her own. You decide, okay? So the next call went to Mabel and said, be parked out on the curb. If this kid refuses to leave the house, I want you to just